Welcome back to the show where we run you through all the Dolphins news you need to know about. After running through the news you need to know about, we run you through the fan Q&A where we answer fans' questions. It's a very depressing episode. I mean, I think all Dolphins fans are, especially with this first news story, it's just tough dropping 4 in a row. Had control of this game, up 10 points. Defense played pretty good football. And then to turn the ball over 4 times and especially at home in a big time December game is very unfortunate. But let's get into the news you need to know about. This first news story is very sad and unfortunate. Tua is back in concussion protocol. Again, this comes from Pro Football Rumors. Mike McDaniel said it was too early to tell if this will sideline Tua for the Dolphins' Week 17 matchup with the Patriots. But Barry Jackson of the Miami Herald notes that Teddy Bridgewater will be the team's first stringer for much of this week's practice. Availability concerns aside, this particular player suffering another head injury will bring considerable scrutiny given the events from earlier this season. That part of it, I'm not really too concerned about. I don't think anybody at the time, he didn't even show symptoms, at least obviously not during the game from what we could see as fans. Obviously he's the one who reported it, as the report states, to the team doctors himself because he was having symptoms. So that part of it doesn't really concern me. I think if they thought he had a concussion or he even showed symptoms that they could see, then he definitely would have been taken out of the game. So, yeah, I don't even the hit that people are kind of peddling around Twitter right now, as it happened, it didn't really seem that bad. But he's been hit, some of the sacks and obviously some of the concussions that he suffered, very similar type of play, like almost identical. The way he kind of just falls to the ground, and it's very unfortunate. But this brings up questions about the future of his career here. Obviously, his future career in football is obviously up for question because of the amount of concussions he suffered this season. This would be his 3rd. And then obviously the debacle of suffering a major head injury after just suffering a head injury only a few days before. So, it's something that he's going to have to figure out and kind of, I don't know if, there's been a lot of players that have had these issues throughout their career that didn't retire because of them. So, I don't know. We'll see. That whole side of it is what it is. Who knows what Tua will do? I doubt he'll retire, but I think that obviously the more, I would say, pressing news, because it's coming up, is this week's game against the Patriots. Not to gloss over the fact that Tua obviously has a lot of health concerns. But that is to be determined. Who knows what, and people over here saying what he should do or shouldn't do. Who knows what he'll do, and who knows what is good best for him, honestly. But I do know that we have a game coming up, and he would give us the best chance to win that game if he was healthy, obviously. And the fact that Teddy is going to be the starter obviously isn't great. Since he's been in Miami, he's been pretty bad. Even in the preseason, he did not look good. The good news is that the run game is a lot better as the season has gone on. The offensive line play has been significantly better since the last time that we played with him as a starter against the Vikings and even against the Jets. It's improved a great amount, which is good. Especially these last, even though we've lost 4 games in a row, I think the pass protection has gotten better. The run game obviously has gotten significantly better. There's back-to-back games now where we had something going on the ground. We did kind of get away from it as the game kind of spiraled out of control for understandable reasons. The Packers did do kind of a better job of stopping and run as the game went on. But I feel like the offensive line play is a lot better than it was earlier in the year. So that's a huge plus for Teddy. And not to mention the fact that the offense itself is really good. So he's going to have a chance. I don't think this is the worst thing Obviously, I mean, it's not great, but it's not like he's stepping into a situation where he's gonna not have any kind of advantages for him to take advantage of. He's not stepping into a bad situation, so he's stepping into one of the best passing offenses in the NFL. The offensive line is playing better, so it's a good situation to be in for at least for Teddy. It's unfortunate. Tua hasn't been playing good football these last 4 games. This was his worst game of his career, even though I've said that. I feel like I've said that 2 other times already, which is very unfortunate. But, just to talk about it, just the turnovers, all 3 interceptions weren't great. They were all bad for their own right. I think the criticism of him being a one-read quarterback, which I think is a cliche, just a stupid criticism, especially for him. He's definitely not a one-read quarterback. I think some of the things that he struggled with this year kind of reared its ugly head in this game. He does need to be, and this is weird, but he needs to be more conservative with the way he plays the game. Holding onto the ball too long, scrambling, taking unnecessary hits is a huge concern and a huge issue, and it's led to a lot of his injuries this season. He needs to be more conservative with his reads. He seems to want the big play too much sometimes, and maybe that's because of the outside noise that he's had to deal with for the past few years. He's been throwing the deep ball really well all year. Like, I feel like that criticism has been put to bed pretty definitively. I mean, he's made some great deep throws this season. The throw in this game, one of his best throws of his career, was a beautiful throw. The throw up in Buffalo, the throw against the Chargers. I mean, he's had so many great deep balls this season, and he's gotten better at it. So I don't think that's something that he is struggling with anymore. But and I don't think he's a one read. There's just too much film on Tua going through his entire progressions. But I do think he needs to be a bit more conservative in certain situations with his play. Whether it's holding the ball too long or, sometimes reading zone coverage from the short routes to the deep instead of the deep to the short is something that they might need to kind of pound. Because there's been a few plays where he's kind of just looking downfield to some of the deeper progressions. He just needs to come back down. Even against the Packers, I think, is a good example of that. The last interception, there were people open underneath. He just kind of got baited by the corner. He thought that they were going to take Tyreek Hill. He ends up going to Gesicki. It's a little bit of a misread there, but that's, I think, an area of his game that needs to improve for sure. His control of the football, in terms of the consistency of it, is something that he has to get better at too. That's clearly been an issue all year. Where, even the Steelers game, there have been moments in other games where he's kind of lost it high. We've seen that a few times this year. That's something that he's going to have to get better at. There are issues with his game that he needs to fix. He needs to really mold himself into that pocket passer role, which is where he's comfortable. He just has to continue to get better at it. Don't hold on to the ball that long. You don't have to scramble. Keep yourself healthy. Stuff like that is something that I think, especially with all the injuries that he's endured throughout his career, he's gotten more and more less athletic as his career has gone on. So that's something that I think he has to kind of teach his instincts to, especially in the NFL where everybody's faster. So yeah, there's a few things that this year have been bad. I think the things we just talked about with his clock needs to be a little bit faster, and for his own health, take less hits on some of those scrambles, and the lack of consistency of control of the football is definitely concerning, especially with some of the throws over the middle. And the last thing I want to talk about when it's regards to Tua, yes, he's been playing not his worst football of his career these last 4 games for all the reasons I just said. For whatever reason, I don't know why it got worse as the year gone on. I don't know if it's because of his arm or what it is, but that's something that they're going to have to look into with him, or coach it, whatever they have to do. Because that has not been an issue, especially missing high throughout his career. Maybe it's because we're throwing the ball over the middle significantly more and we just didn't see this as an issue throughout some of his earlier seasons. But that's definitely something that they're going to have to fix for sure. And the other criticism that I want to get into that I just do not agree with, and I do think the lion's share of the blame goes to Tua, and I love Tua. I thought he was having a great season, and his numbers are still great. He hasn't turned the ball over that much throughout the year. This obviously this stretch of games hasn't been good, but it is what it is. He is the reason we lost this game. He's the reason we lost the 49ers game. He isn't the reason we lost the Chargers game. I think that was more of a group effort. But those 2 games, I think, stand out to me that his play was so bad. It just, especially to beat a good football team, you just can't do that. And the criticism that Mike McDaniel's offense has been somehow figured out is not true. It's just not true. The only game where you could make that argument is against the Chargers. But all of the other games, I just can't, I don't see. I mean, the Bills game was really well, I thought, game planned for. You could say some of the situational play calls, you could argue, weren't great. I just disagree with that. We scored 29 points on the road against Buffalo. You have to win that game. Josh Allen just had a great game. Defensively, we got to play better. And some of that goes on Josh Boyer, and some of that's on the injuries on defense. But it's not Mike McDaniel's fault. I can't even remember the last time we scored 29 points on the road in Buffalo. It's been a long time. So that doesn't, to me, that criticism doesn't make any sense. And the criticism overall of Mike's offense doesn't make any sense because it's not true. There are people open that aren't getting hit. There are plays that aren't getting taken advantage of. And all of the losses that we've had. Now, the Chargers game is a little bit different of a story. I think the Chargers did a good job of taking some of our bread and butter plays away, not letting us get those RPOs. I think they have done by far the best job of that, but I thought Mike did a great job of adjusting off of that and getting away from some of that stuff after that game. So I just, again, the criticism from Mike is absolutely ridiculous and not true. It just isn't true. I mean, even in this game, we had 2 receivers go over 100 yards with Waddle and Hill. The run game was good. It's just the quarterback play wasn't good. It was bad. And it's the reason we lost this game. And it's the reason we've had issues in these last 4 games, is the quarterback play hasn't been up to a good enough standard. And not in the Bills game, I shouldn't say that, but the other 3, the quarterback play just hasn't been what it needs to be. And certainly hasn't been as good as it was early in the season. Or not even early, we're talking about November. After November, it just hasn't been good for whatever reason. Well, definitely the control of the football thing has been an issue. And even to a reference in his press conference, saying he kind of lost control on the Jair interception. But you can tell he's lacking confidence, especially in this game after some of those turnovers. And he just needs to kind of... It's been a weird season for Tua. With the concussions, the criticisms going into the year. He's had a very, very strange career in the NFL. And hopefully he can bounce back from this. I mean, he played He played amazing in that first half. Like, he was really he was great in that first half, and it just snowballed in the fourth quarter. It's just hard to kind of put your finger on. And then again, it's not Mike McDaniel's fault, and the criticism that Tua is a one-rate quarterback is ridiculously stupid. It's just not true. So those things that just bother me about that, and those aren't the issues. Now, they have a lot of other issues we've talked about. I think the interior needs to be better. I think Robert Hunt, Connor Williams, and Armstead are all great players and should be here for the foreseeable future. But the Brandon Shaw also has played. You know, that's the wild part about this, is that the pass protection has been really good, and the run game has gotten better, and still we've lost these games. And another thing that hurts about this game is the defense really didn't play that bad. I mean, if you look at the numbers for the Packers, their two running back, which is what they like to play through, had 36 yards and 25 yards. Aaron Rodgers had 1 touchdown and 1 interception with 238 yards. Lazard was their leading receiver with 61 yards. The Dolphins beat themselves in this game. And it sucks because of the reasons I said. It's just, to have a game like that, it just hurts as a fan, for sure. Especially since where we were early in the year, and then how we've played throughout some of November and December. It's not good. And, you know, moving on from it's a bag of a lot of different reasons to be upset as a Dolphin. The quarterback play being as up and down as it's been is strange, and then the fact that we're having another December of not great football is another thing that's an issue. I mean, the team defensively, I think it's not even a dang argument at this point. They're gonna have to completely renovate that side of the ball in terms of scheme. That has to change. I mean, the front seven should have more sacks than they do. This defense should have more turnovers than it does. It's just there's too much pressure being put on certain players. A lot of the players on the defensive side of football are not being put in positions to succeed. They haven't changed anything, whether it was in the bye week or at any point in the season. And we wonder why that we're not getting bigger plays defensively. The blitz stuff doesn't work anymore in the NFL. The NFL has caught up to it. Nobody with a brain really runs it anymore. All of the great defensive play callers in the league don't do it anymore. It's bad. And again, there hasn't been really any adjustments at all. So that side of the ball has to change. You know, and I was completely wrong about Josh Boyer. I think a lot of us were. Even Mike was. It's just, I think you have to have a certain amount of talent to run this scheme, and it just, because of all the injuries in the secondary, it has been even worse this year. And I think that's the main reason. Now, if they want to retain, I don't think you retain him though. The defense, like I said, is way too predictable, and it is even when the defense is healthy. And because of its predictability, quarterbacks are never confused. Neither are offensive coordinators, and neither is the offense. And that has led to zero, for the most part, big plays through this 4-game losing streak and throughout most of the season. And it's unfortunate. That side of the ball, I think, is the most frustrating, especially since so many players, I feel, have improved on the front seven a lot. And, you know, there are other players that have just completely disappeared. Like Jerome Baker is a great example. He's too good of a player to not make splash plays. You know, Xavier Howard having 1 interception on the year is ridiculous. Javon Holland should have produced more turnovers than he has. He just has too much on his plate playing that free safety role where he's basically just playing, all right, I'm just going to help the lesser players cover. And that's pretty much it. He's not really free at any point. And it sucks. Defensively, it's just been bad all season. And we give up more points than any other AFC team. And that's by a pretty wide margin. Our home record defensive numbers are terrible. Our defensive numbers on the road are terrible. And it's because of all of the reasons I just stated. I hope they can go out and get a veteran guy like a Vic Fangio, who I spoke out against earlier in the year when we didn't have our coaching staff. I think that's something that they need to look into. I hope that they get someone who's done it before. It's hard to find that. The Giants got Wink Martindale. They got really lucky. It's hard to kind of get that in the NFL, but maybe they can find that. That would be great. They just need to change that side of the football because, again, too many players on that defense that aren't being put in positions to succeed, and that needs to change. So, really, we covered this game. The Dolphins, usually we talk about the game. Dolphins fall 26-20. I think that, and another thing that I want to say is that Mike and the staff have complete and utter trust in Tua. They really do, and you can tell that by the play calling. And I honestly am not against it. And Raheem Mostert only had 8 carries for 45 yards. He was averaging 5 yards a carry. Jeff Wilson had 9 carries for 37. He was averaging 4 yards a carry. And yeah, you would like to lean on that, but when you have such explosive playmakers, I mean, Tyreek held 4 catches for 103 yards, and Waddle had 5 catches for 143 yards. So the trust factor thing is clearly not an issue with this coaching staff. They do believe in Tua. They believe in his ability to for the game to be run through him in the pass game. And sometimes that's obviously got us in trouble. It's just hard, especially in that second half when you run for a yard or two. It's hard to kind of stay with it when you haven't seen consistency with the run game. But I don't know. It's a tough one to criticize the management of the game in terms of a play calling. From a play calling standpoint, but I don't know. It just sucks that especially the way Tua played in the first half. I'm already getting down on myself. Anyway, yeah, we pretty much talked about everything in this game. The run defense was great in this game. I mean, A.J. Dillon averaged 3 yards a carry. Aaron Jones was pretty much non-existent in this game with 25 yards. Even Aaron Rodgers didn't have the greatest game ever. We were able to stop him a few times on 4th down. We didn't take advantage of the turnovers that the Packers had, which was a big deal in this game. The punt, the fake punt that we stopped. Beautiful play by Raekwon Davis. We weren't able to capitalize on that. And then obviously the interception that Cater Cook had, which was a beautiful pick. And he's having a fantastic season, especially for a rookie. We just didn't do anything with the ball. Obviously, we just literally turned it right over 2 seconds later. So we lost the game for all the reasons that we just talked about. And I think the glaring issues with this Dolphins team that have hurt them this year is defensive stuff that we talked about that has to change, and special teams has been awful. I mean, it really has. It's been terrible. The kickoff stuff has been awful. The punt return stuff has been terrible. The kickoff return stuff has been terrible. We have to do better when it comes to stuff like that. And it's definitely going to have to get better against a team like New England, who obviously doesn't have the worst special teams in the world. So it's unfortunate. For those things have to be fixed this upcoming off season. I mean, even if you look at the total yards of this game, this is how you know you beat yourself. There was the Dolphins. The yards per play for the Packers, they had 4. The Dolphins had 8. Rushing yards, the Dolphins had more than the Packers. They had 82. The Packers had 79. The Dolphins had more passing yards than the Packers. They had 294 to the Packers 222. They almost had 100 more total yards. And really what the difference in this game was field position and turnovers. That was literally the difference in the game. And that is the reason the Dolphins lost. It wasn't because of Mike McDaniel's play calling. It was because of bad quarterback play, too many dang turnovers, and field position. I mean, even the opening kickoff, they're in the red zone. So it's just it is what it is. They beat themselves. And again, the Mike McDaniel stuff is ridiculous. So let's get into the fan Q&A. This first question comes from SM. He says, huge contracts were given out because we were in win now mode. If we lose one more game at all this season, it's all over. So to recap, no playoffs, no draft picks, no cap space. Thoughts? I mean, who knows how? I mean, the team is more than capable of beating the 2 teams that they have on their schedule left. They just have to play better football. That's it. Play like they did against the Bills. They can definitely win these last 2 games for sure. But I think the team really, it just needs to get healthier. And honestly, I want to wait till these next 2 games are done to kind of talk about some of the things that I think are on my mind in terms of what needs to change. But the Dolphins can maneuver around cap space. I don't think the cap space is going to be that bad. And yeah, and they have a good roster. And again, especially defensively, I think there's just a few things they need to tweak. This next question comes from Jared Dickerson. He says, hey, Skaggs, what is your assessment of Tua as our quarterback for the future? See, that's where we kind of get into weird territory. There's just too many mysteries with him. That's why it sucks that he's in concussion protocol, and hopefully he doesn't miss these next 2 games, because the roster is too good to be wasted on a question mark. And I hate it. It just is what it is. To be wasted on a question mark at the quarterback position. And again, he put up great numbers this season. He played phenomenal football for most of the year. And hopefully, again, he can come back healthy and recapture that. But if I was the general manager of the team, it would really come down to these last 2 games and what the market would look like at the quarterback position. But yeah, I think that is a mystery right now, honestly. And I hate to say it, but it's true. Especially since they're in a win now mentality. If certain things present themselves in terms of opportunities at certain players in the offseason, they're definitely going to have to think about it. And it definitely depends on what happens in these last 2 games. But I do think that Tua, it just, these last few games has completely thrown me off. Like, he has played like a franchise quarterback this year. And maybe they can, and I think alternatively, if they do go with Tua throughout after the season, they need to, I think, continue to build the offensive line. And there's a lot of good linemen. There's a lot of good running backs in free agency. So that is also something that they need to look into. And defensively, they definitely need to make a change at the coordinator position. This next question comes from Hold on a second. Mark. Oh.
Hello, everyone.
It's an ad, everybody. Sorry. This next question comes from Mark Jefferson. He says, other than Boyer, who should be gone? And is it clear for Mike to be on the hot seat? Is Tua and Greer on the hot seat their last season? No, it's not. Mike McDaniel is definitely, I mean, he's done nothing but prove me wrong this season. I'm not joking. It's really the quarterback position. And I don't know what else to tell you guys. That and the defensive stuff hasn't been great. But that is really I mean, especially these last few games. It's just been really bad. And it definitely it's been so bad to the point where I do think it is something that they're gonna have to look into. But that's really what is standing from this team being, I think, a Super Bowl contender. If Tua can play like he did at his peak this year on a consistent basis, and he doesn't have these lulls, then we are a Super Bowl contender. I really do believe that, especially if we change the defensive coordinator. So we're only a few steps, I think, away from getting that done. I don't think you fired the management or the head coach after this season. I think if you're smart and you look at what went wrong, I think you can identify that and fix it. It's not something that... It's not a situation where you have to blow it all up. That's for sure. This last question comes from SM. He says, and I'm not saying that you're not smart, Mark, but I think if you are, let's say you're Stephen Ross, then I think you can... I think that's what the issue is, to answer your question, Mark. This next question comes from SM. Too much of the anticipatory throws from Tua. The entire Dolphins pass game is timing, so teams are messing the timing off the line of scrimmage, which happens, but Tua is still throwing to spots without adjusting. Yeah, that is, I think, a good observation, and I think that's an issue that he had in this game, but that's an issue that all quarterbacks have when it comes to throwing interceptions a lot of the time. It's just being wrong with what you see. But I don't think, because a lot of the interceptions in this game, it wasn't like they were being overly physical with the receivers. There was a lot of zone coverage, especially in the fourth quarter. There were people open that he just didn't see for whatever reason, which has not been a thing for him throughout his career. I don't know. He's having trouble seeing the field right now, and that was not the case earlier in the year. But especially in this game, in the Niners game, it was his accuracy was really bad in that game, and he was just missing throws. In this game, it was a completely different issue. It was he just wasn't seeing the field that well. It's like again, it's been different problems with him. In some of these games, it's been completely different. In the Chargers game, it was kind of the same thing as the Niners game. We missed, we missed 7 points to Tyreek Hill early in that game because he lost control of the football. So in this game, it was kind of a combination of both of those things. I think it was more to do with he just wasn't seeing the field that well in this game. But it's been different things for him throughout the year. And those two things have been the biggest issues. But the Packers game is really the only one where I was like, what is he? It doesn't seem like he knows what he's looking at sometimes. And the other games was just the lack of consistency throwing the football. But yeah, I mean, again, it's been so it's been such a catastrophe that I think it has us all thinking like it might be time to just really look at what, and again, it sucks to say that, man, because of how well he was playing early in the year. I mean, he might be a Pro Bowl alternate. He might actually play in a Pro Bowl game this year, but it's just these last few games have been so bad. It definitely gives you pause for sure. But I do think it's been the quarterback play that's been the biggest issue for this team. In the 4-game losing streak. I don't think it's a debate. So that's it, guys. it's been bothering me since this Packers game, really. I think the thing that's been bothering me the most is Tua, really. It's not really the rest of the team. It's just, it's him himself that's been it's been the biggest bummer. The fairy tale season has just kind of completely flipped on its head, and it sucks. But let me know what you guys think. What would you do if you were the team? I think there's a lot of things you could do, but I mainly think it's going to come down to whether this team. It's going to come down to two things. Well, it's going to come down to one thing. What is the answer at that position? If it is Tua, I think there's two things you can do the offense that's going to help a lot. I think shoring up that right tackle position is a big deal. I don't think the answer is Brandon Shell, even though he's been playing good football for us. And I don't think it would be the worst thing in the world to get an above-average running back who's a playmaker on his own. I think if that's something that has to be a priority, and then changing the defensive coordinator. But the quarterback position is definitely going to be something that they're going to have to take very seriously and really treat with care on what the decision will be after this season. I think is something that is going to happen, because that is going to be the difference between this roster going to where it should go in terms of reaching its potential and not reaching its potential and being a 500 football team. So that is something that they're going to have to figure out. Now, again, I don't want to leave off on a negative note because this team is still well within the playoff race. They just have to win one game. The Jets have to lose one game. It's not that crazy to think. I mean, if the Dolphins beat the Patriots and the Jets lose, they're in the playoffs. So it's not. They're still in a very good position. They have a better roster than both of the teams that they play at the end of the year. It's not going to be easy, but if they can just win this one game, then the season was more than a success. And they could get to 10 wins, it was definitely a success. So it's not all lost, but in terms of the issues that they've had with these last 4 games, those are the issues. I think it's pretty obvious. But that's it. Hate to be negative, but I'm not trying to be negative. I'm just trying to just tell you guys what I see. But that is it. I hope you guys enjoyed the show. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section. And hopefully we'll talk about a win the next time I do this podcast.